Okay, it's 6 o'clock plus, so I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Wareham Finance Committee taking place on March 31st, 10 p.m. May I ask the clerk to call the roll?
Good evening. We have Bernie Pigeon, Chair, Dave Hurd, Vice Chair, Jody Smith, Glenn Lawrence, and myself, Jerry Stefanski. So we got 5 of 9, Bernie. We got a quorum.
Okay, first item on our agenda. Last week at our meeting, when we came up with the CPC for sponsoring Littleton Drive housing, there were some questions with respect to it being conducted by a nonprofit versus a profit. And I have our guest, Charlie Adams, gave me a call. We were put together by Richard Swenson, and we chatted, and I just explained that there was not necessarily a misunderstanding, but there was not an understanding that these projects go forward with both sides and they're covered by legislation. So Charlie, I'll ask you to take the floor and clarify that fact that you're profit nonprofit comparison.
Sure. Thank you for having me. And Kim Buckland's here as well from the WRA. Answer any questions you have. I hope I can do this. If you don't mind, do you mind if I share my screen?
No, by all means.
Great. I did a couple of quick slides here to kind of orient ourselves. I thought that'd be helpful to just like 9 quick slides here to orient ourselves to the conversation and what we're talking about. I think it's always easier to see it than to hear it. Oops.
Did I listen?
Yeah.
Let's see, somebody else just grabbed it. Let me try it again. Can people see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so obviously we're talking about Littleton Drive. We were, just quick background, we were picked by the WRA, put out an RFP for housing on this site. And we went through a competitive process and we were selected by the WRA and working with their consultants from Mass Housing and Jen Goldson, I believe was another consultant you had, Ken. And we went through a process with them. We've had been working very closely with WRA, put together a land disposition agreement. We've gotten zoning approval at this point. We've got confirmation. We've got COMCOM approval as well. And we submitted applications for funding. So things are really moving along. And we've also got the CPC, as obviously, as you know, voted to send this to town meeting for approval. Just quickly, a little bit about what it looks like. Many of you have seen this before, but if not, it's a 93 unit development. It's really, we're doing sort of two deals sort of at the same time. There was a real interest in doing some senior housing here, and we were able to get the state to go along because usually they want to just see family, but we were able to do a sort of a mix of family and senior housing. And so the senior housing is down on the right in the building. There's 44 units there. There's 49 units, located in 10 buildings spread around a common green. We think it's a really great site plan that it really condenses the site, keeps it in the center, keeps lots of open green space. And then the crown jewel of all this is right in the middle. I don't know if you can see the screen, but I think it's building 11 is the community building. So you enter coming off Littleton Drive and you come down and you'll see this great community building right in the middle. Here's sort of an aerial view of the property. Sorry, it's not oriented the same way. We orient it differently, but I think you get the sense. You'd come into the property from the top left-hand side coming down, and this is the community building right here in the center. At the top of the page is the senior building, and then the family units are spread around the green. Zeroed in a little bit on the community building. This is sort of kind of the extra thing we kind of can do for this site. We can create a real nice community building here where we always like to try to do that on sites of this size. You know, other people don't necessarily do that. We always like to do that. It's a place where we actually put the management office. So it's in a central location. So eyes are all on the street, and it'll have like a fitness room. And the crown jewel is, a big community room with a kitchen. So that's open for the residents of the facility as well as the community at large. So anybody is welcome to use the site. We don't charge anything for it, and people are welcome to have meetings and things like that. So people can have events. And then just sort of the backside, sort of the back you hear is actually where the community room will be. It's sort of in the center, and then there's some double doors there that would empty out onto a back deck where we'd have some seating area right in the middle of the development. I think there were some questions about sort of cost. Just wanted to give you guys a perspective. So a couple of things, why the value of the CPA money is well, it may be a large number from the perspective of the town. From the overall development, it's a small contribution, and so it actually is used to sort of leverage. You can think about how you're leveraging $830,000 investment. You're leveraging 93 units. I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time tonight. I'm eating my words. 93 units. And so a little bit how the money breaks down. What we had talked. So what we had talked about with the CPC was we'd come to a decision about $10,000 per unit, and sort of divide it up into the two kind of pieces of it. They'll be separately owned, but be done at the same time. And so what we are doing is there's of the 93 units total, 83 of them are what would be considered affordable, and 10 would be workforce. And CPC felt important to subsidize the non-workforce units, and so that's where we have 38 in the family and 44 in the senior, and that gets you to 10,000 units. 380 for the family and 440,000 for the senior. Just a little bit in context. CPA money, this is one of the primary purposes it's used for. As you know, the CPA is divided up into housing, open space, and historic. And the housing money is used for exactly this type of development. We've used it on the Cape. In our Eastham project, we're using it in Orleans as well. One of the things we've been really successful with, and something we actually might like to consider, we want to talk more with CPC and go back to them, but on the Cape, we were actually able to get some contributions from the neighboring towns. So in our deal that we did in Eastham, which was a much bigger number than the 830,000, we got 1.6 million of money in Eastham. And 1.4 of that came from Eastham, 100,000 came from Orleans, and 100,000 came from Wareham. We're from Wellfleet. And then in Orleans, they're going to put a $2 million request on a town meeting. And we've already got a similar $100,000 commitment from Eastham for that project. And we're also waiting to hear from Chatham and Provincetown. So I just want to give you this chart just to show you that we did a quick look at, there's thousands of examples of this in the CPA database that we have. And I forwarded it off to Bernie. I think you got a copy of it, that if you go to that website, there's just thousands of examples of how CPA money is used. We pulled off a few quickly that we could in a short period of time of specific housing developments that were built, the amount per unit, and that these are all private developers. They're not, these are not not-for-profits like housing authorities or other entities that are not, that in some cases they give money for the trust or for hiring a consultant and all that. But these are specific developments that are housing. And whether the housing, it's all private housing, and whether it's developed by a for-profit or not-for-profit is somewhat immaterial. Because there's still developer fees for all of them. There's no difference whether it's a not-for-profit or a for-profit developer that's developing it. With respect to the fee, the money that we're asking for from CPA is going to go directly into the bricks and mortar. It's not going into our pocket. One of the things that you get a benefit with when you do state-funded projects and you do 40Bs is that your fee is fixed. It's a set number. It's based, and so this money is not going to go into our pocket at all. It's going to go out into the bricks and mortar, and it's specifically going to go. If you think about it, it's fungible stuff, but really, it's it's a community building that's going to benefit from this investment, and all the sidewalks that we promised. some of the traffic calming measures, the trails throughout, all those additional benefits are things that the CPA money would be used for. Things that without those monies, we wouldn't be able to do to, deliver the high quality project here that we're trying to accomplish. So that's my short spiel there. Hope I didn't go too fast, or if there's anything that was.
No, quite
I'm happy
interesting.
to answer any questions.
Any questions, gentlemen? Charlie, one of the issues that were brought up, and you touched on it, is these being constructed by either for-profit or nonprofit organizations. And, excuse me, in the case of, let's say, a nonprofit, they have staff, salaries, et cetera, as does a for-profit. But irrespective, if I understand what you've explained, is in the legislation, whether it be for-profit or nonprofit, the fee is fixed.
Correct.
Doesn't make any difference either or.
Right.
Interesting. Any other concerns, gentlemen?
Yeah, I got a question, Bernie.
Yes, Jody.
I think I know the answer, but the 60 to 80% of the median regional income, do you know what that number is off the top of your head? I'm more concerned about the senior housing, senior affordable housing. I mean, do you know what that number is for this region?
I do, but I don't have it at my fingertips. I can try to get that for you. What's your particular issue or concern?
Well, 60 to 80% of what the median, if the region encompasses a lot of towns around us, which I'm trying to think of the words I want to use, maybe a little bit more well off than Wareham per se. That's not based on just Wareham's income, because 60 to 80% of the median income for a lot of seniors, that's not even doable. So that's kind of my concern.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about how. I mean, actually, so the way you described it, actually, there's actually a benefit to what you described. Actually, if you think about this, so this how it works. There's a maximum rent that could be charged for those units, and it's based on the area median income, and then it's also who qualifies as well. But the units. These are private units that residents have to pay, and so if their incomes are not if the incomes are not large enough, our rents have to go down to meet where the residents are, right? So there's a maximum that we can charge, but the rent is going to be at a level that can be afforded by the people in the community. So if you're thinking that if you're concerned that because we're in Boston, the AMIs are going to be too high, and we end up charging that rent, we quickly find that there aren't people that want them, and so we'll drop those rents. And actually, we'll do a market study as it is, and so we'll figure out what the rents are. And in a lot of cases, we don't charge the maximum rents because it's too expensive. So.
Yeah, I kind of knew it was the Boston market. I just wanted to hear it. You know the old saying, I don't ask a question. It's like lawyers don't ask a question unless you kind of know the answer. My main concern were the seniors. I mean, they're more than likely on fixed incomes.
That's right. That's right.
That type of thing.
That's right. So, like I said, it's supply and demand. So, wherever those rents land, that's what they'll get charged.
But I think what Jerry refers to, we unfortunately are included, Alan knows the proper buzzwords, included in the Boston area, which stretches all the way down here, including Wareham. So the housing market is distorted as compared to what our actual cost of living is here in Wareham. And I think Jody is alluding to that. The people who live here in Wareham would be eligible for that, the housing. Are making incomes comparable to our location versus the geographical inclusion of Boston.
But the benefit, I wasn't clear about this, the benefit that you get from that, though, is that more people would qualify to live here, right?
Maybe.
Don't
Well, from
understand
an
that.
income perspective, right? So, I mean, if there are people out there that are at those higher levels, because the Boston market goes to a level, they could still live here.
But we don't want those Boston people down here. They're very incorrigible.
I didn't say Boston people. I said at the Boston levels.
We want Wareham people there.
Understood.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
How will you pick the residents? How do we know that we're going to have Wareham residents? And
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. So it's a lottery. It's a requirement. There's no way around it. It's a fair housing issue. You have to do a lottery. So, but what the state has been able to negotiate, working with HUD, is that there'll be a 70% preference for. Well, we have to ask for that, and it's not automatic, but we have been able to get it in the other towns that we've worked in Eastham and Auburn. So. We would get they allow up to a 70% preference for Wareham residents. It's for the first year only, but it gives folks the first year to get in. So that's a tool that's used to help get that the state sees as a benefit because the local community is providing this housing, that they give them a 70% preference.
who makes that decision, or who selects out of that pool the 70%?
It's all a lottery. So what would happen is we don't hand pick people. When we get to the point where we're going to start leasing up, we would advertise that we're about to lease up, and people would send in their applications, and we put them all in a basket, and then we'd start drawing numbers, and everybody would get listed out. And so, let's say, the first 4 people ended up getting pulled were not from Wareham, but the 5th person was, they go right to the top of the list. They're number 1. So that's the real benefit that Wareham people have in the lottery at the beginning.
Okay. I think we desperately need in many communities, including ours, affordable housing for the elderly, especially, as they're the age group that was in the cusp of the beginning of the 401ks, investments and all. And many of them, unfortunately, are still very much dependent upon their Social Security income, augmented possibly by a company retirement plan, because they would have had a retirement plan from a company, but that retirement plan was about to end and switch over. Most companies switched over to the 401, as my principal company did. I was fortunate enough to be grandfathered in. In spite of my age, I was very young at the time, but they certainly need that opportunity to have some decent housing. Anything else, gentlemen? No, thank you very much, Charlie. I think
Okay.
you gave us a good presentation that gave a lot of information. Appreciate it very much.
Great.
I'll ask that presentation that you had up, could you or perhaps Ken send me over an email your PowerPoint?
Will do.
I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks, everybody.
The next item on our agenda was Harbor Services in Gary, and he had emailed me he would be here. Maybe he's chasing a runaway hog or something. But we'll go on to the next one. And there was some confusion on, and I apologize for it, but Article 17 is a petitioned article regarding solar. Now, we have a couple articles already on the warrant regarding solar, and I don't think they're in conflict, but perhaps our guest, Nancy McHale, would enlighten us on what she proposes in her solar petition. And I must compliment you, Nancy, in a special town meeting petitioned article requires 125 signatures versus only 25 in an annual, and you got them all. Congratulations.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because according to the town clerk, I only needed 100. So it's really nice to know that we got well over that. But thank you very much. The solar bylaw amendment that I'm proposing is to limit the size of some of these solar farms. And the intent is to take a breath. The 2014 solar bylaws that were put in place are outdated. There's been new state guidance coming down that indicates that there should be some sort of mitigation for the clear cutting of forests, that we should be taking into account carbon sequestration. Between 2013 and 2020, Wareham permitted 19 solar farms. They were averaging 15 acres apiece. Okay, that's about 285 acres. Currently, there's about 5 more in the permitting process, and those include the 3 Makepeace properties and 1 at Maple Rock, which is on the Wareham Carver line. That's about another 200 acres. A lot of these are being clear cut, and there's been no mitigation for the damage to the environment on those. Our current bylaws have no restriction on size, land clearing, alterations to the topography, no limit on the number of solar farms, no mitigation for the environmental damage, no specific siting requirements, and they don't adequately address the impacts on the scenic, natural, or architectural or historical values, resources of the town. What I'm proposing to do is basically take a breath, look at properties. The bylaw amendment would limit the size to no more than 10 acres and only on land that has been cleared for 5 years. Okay, this would allow solar development on areas that are already cleared. In town, we have no major solar farms over parking lots. We have nothing over large commercial buildings. I don't believe that there's solar intended on either the new school or the police department. Those are low-hanging fruit that solar can be put on without environmental damage. The state is looking at trying to figure out how to change the regulations, how to make the financing work for these, because it's been the financing that's been driving the large solar farms. So just for instance, Plymouth has limited the size of their farms to 15 acres. Falmouth says no clear cutting within the last 5 years, and they limit the size of any trees that can be taken down to 2 acres. And that would be just for access and that sort of thing. Now, it's not the whole solar project. It would only be where the arrays are sitting would be the limit of the 10 acres. Currently, it has to be 3 acres, and there was no limit to how large it could be. So it would be anywhere from 3 acres to 10 acres. And that is then classified as a large solar project. Anything under 3 is categorized differently. So this is 2 changes to the bylaw that would hopefully allow us to take a breath, revisit the entire alternative energy bylaw within Wareham, and move on from there. So that's my pitch, and I can answer any questions if you have any questions for me. But this is not just Wareham's problem. The entire state is feeling the crunch and needs some sort of mitigation from the clear cutting and that's been happening.
Nancy, the limitations that you have in your proposal, as you describe other communities, they have either, in often many cases, greater than your selection. Why did you choose the particular limitations in your article?
Looking at a lot of some of the other bylaws that have actually gotten passed in towns that the state attorney general has been supportive of, then that was the main thing. And knowing that, generally speaking, parking lots, some of the smaller cranberry bogs may be applicable for that, to just try to mitigate the huge impact. We've seen a lot of them going into neighborhoods, so that there's visual impact. You know, somebody buys a house and all of a sudden, what they thought was, they bought into a nice neighborhood, and then the next door neighbor decides that, oh, they're going to sell it for a solar farm. But it was in consultation with a number of other people, and I had sent that number back and forth to Mr. Buckland a number of times. We had conversations about it, and he felt comfortable with that number of 10.
Question, gentlemen?
Yes, has the planning board voiced an opinion on this?
There's a planning board hearing scheduled for the 12th of April. So no, at this point, they have not, I've not heard an opinion from the planning board, other than watching the planning board members at their meetings, holding their noses as they have been approving the large-scale solar farms that they have no ability to limit.
Do we have any idea what the state is going to do?
Um,
Have there been any bills pending on this?
There are a number of state committees that are looking at it. The EEA has a resilient initiatives vision statement that includes 8 different strategies. One is no net loss of farms and forests. You know, so that's pretty straightforward to me, that the state is taking this very seriously. I mean, you cut down all of these trees that have been sequestering carbon for years and years and years, and you cut them down and put up solar. You're not helping the climate change at all in that respect, because you're not absorbing the water, you're not making oxygen, you're not sequestering more carbon. It's a vicious cycle. We need to like do a stop and just say, let's think about this. Let's get together, figure out a whole different way of looking at these things so that it's a more holistic approach and it's not driven by the major profits for the large scale solar companies. And I have no problem with people making money. I don't have a problem with solar. I have it on my house. You know, alternative energies are really wonderful. We just need to really figure out how to use them and not ruin some of the things that have made Wareham a wonderful community that we all enjoy.
So Nancy, you're not aware of any pending legislation before the legislature, because they're on a 2-year cycle now, and I'm not sure if there's a deadline, but you're not aware of any pending legislation?
I'm not exactly sure where the legislation sits. I know that Mass Audubon and many others are working with the state agencies to get some of these guidelines passed. I don't know specifics on that pending legislation. I'm sorry.
No, as I said, they're on a 2-year cycle, and so it's difficult. You have to wait until they're all done and go into the next cycle for new pending legislation with respect to this. So it's obvious that the legislature, within the near future anyway, is not contemplating any limitations on the expansion or construction of solar fields.
I'm not sure how much, the guidance from the different departments can influence that as well. But again, I will take a look and see what I can find out about pending legislation. That's a good tip for going forward with the planning board hearings.
Any questions, gentlemen? Yes, Gary.
Nancy, if this is voted or approved, and then these regs become effective at that time, I guess, of the vote, or after the Attorney General gets to look at it. And then that's the operating system or rules until, I guess, a study committee then comes up with a recommendation, which then goes to the next town meeting, which then, so I guess these are going to be the rules for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or however long it takes for, if that ever happens.
Right. But again, it's if the community decides that this is either too onerous, too restrictive, that they have another plan, there's always coming back to town meeting and making another amendment, which is wonderful about the town meeting. But I would strongly recommend, encourage, even participate in a committee that would look at all different sorts of alternative energies. And I have heard rumblings of that at different Board of Selectmen's meetings. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if that is actually in the works at some point in time.
You know, as an aside, what's your spin on these wind farms? I mean, don't they do environmental damage or to birds? And
well, again, if you're in the middle of a migratory path, yeah. In the general scheme of things, I don't think, that it's as major of an issue. But again, like I said, it's all about siting. It's about having something that's appropriate scale for the community, and to have those valuable resources. And if you're putting wind farms in an area that has a lot of wind, has a lot of open space, I've seen them as I drive out to Illinois to see family, you see them quite a lot intermixed with farmland. And it seems to work out pretty well there because they're not on major migratory paths. I'm not sure what the state's or the environmental list is for this area, because there's a lot of migratory shorebirds that come this way. So it's
yeah,
haven't really looked at that, but I'm, all issues. I mean, there's the solar, there's the geothermal, there's the wind, there's a lot of things that we haven't really considered. But I think that we really need to take another look at what the forests are doing for us, and keeping our clean air, keeping the climate as cool as we can get it. If we deforest too much, we're going to lose those small streams, that we're going to lose the critters that live here, and we're going to lose the quality of life that we have. So that's kind of where I'm coming at.
Nancy, you also mentioned some parking lots that were covered by solar. Bristol Community College has a large parking lot that's covered by solar. Upper Cape has one covered by solar. The new elementary school, it was specifically constructed to the roof to sustain solar panels on top of it. And Upper Cape, to go back to them, they are currently negotiating a new roof, coincidental with someone putting solar on top, in that he'll lease the roof if they put a new one on it. And we're capable of doing that. As I said, the parking lot and the new elementary school is quite capable of doing it. And middle school, coincidentally, needs a new roof. So there's a possibility of negotiating a lease on that. So there's potential around here that doesn't necessarily impact the environment that you're particularly protecting within your article.
That's correct. So there are opportunities. One of the poster child for success, I would say, is the Gallo Ice Arena. It's the whole roof of that is solar, as well as the parking lot. I don't know if any of you have been out that way recently, but could benefit the town to lease out the area over their parking lot and their town buildings, and have an income stream from solar from those. Just saying, there's alternatives that we need to look at, and we've made it too easy not to look at those.
And of course, Mass Maritime has a windmill, and they are also on geothermal.
Yeah. So I think that we really need to take a step back, put a bit of a halt on this, and take another look at what we're doing to our natural resources and what other better alternatives based on newer guidance we can come up with.
Well, I can sympathize with your suggestion of taking a breath and reevaluating our community as to where perhaps we would want these to be placed, instead of as right now that just an entrepreneur comes in and sees a huge tract of land and they solar, and they can make some money, make peace. Of course, that's part of their business, generating income, and they have a lot of property that has potential for it. So yeah, perhaps taking a breath would be appropriate. Gentlemen? Nancy, go ahead.
No, I appreciate any input, and as I said, trying to figure out how to make this worthwhile. I know I have talked with the assessor's office with Jackie Nichols, and she's doing a really good job of approaching the legislature with a home rule petition to make sure that any of the solars that we can tax it, which I think is fabulous, because a lot of the 19 projects that have come forth early on don't have pilot programs. So even though they are significant, the town is not necessarily reaping as much benefit as they possibly could out of those. So it would be, I totally understand where those are coming from. So I think that, looking at all of the impacts on this, not just the environmental, not just the immediate money that the town may or may not get out of any earth removal or something like that, it all just needs to be considered.
Indeed, and you mentioned what Jackie is doing, and she's being very proactive because she's trying to preempt the legislature. They're currently considering how we would charge these solar farms. And if she can get this adopted ahead of time, we can hopefully be grandfathered in, and the new legislation that's being considered will considerably lessen or reduce the revenues we get from these solar fields. So she's doing a fantastic job, and she's very proactive in it, and to our benefit.
Oh, absolutely.
Any other questions, gentlemen? There being none, Nancy, I want to thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Thank you
And
very much.
Good luck at town meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, gentlemen. Gary hasn't come in, so I would presume he has forgotten or some of that case. But we have some articles that we potentially could vote on if you would like. We've seen them already, of course. And on the annual town meeting, since the special and the special within the special, we have already cast our votes on. I have written up the warrant, and been in conversation with Claire and others in trying to find how many we should print. Claire is anticipating setting up some 800 seats in the ball field for this meeting. Hopefully it doesn't rain. And so I was puzzled as, how many I should print. And it's gone through corrections, and I've sent you an email on the most blatant one that I created myself and kept going on and on about it, and said the meeting was going to be on March 10th. Oh, it's a little overdue. And Claire called me out and she said, of all the things you missed, and yep, right there in front of us, every time I looked at the page was March 10th. Got that corrected, plus some others. David contributed some corrections to it and perhaps some rewriting that I included. And I dropped it off at Staples yesterday, ordering 800 copies, rounding up at about $1,200. So that's so we're all set for that. And so we'll go on for the annual town meeting. We have some we haven't cast our votes on yet. We haven't read the capital plan, which is Article 8, the budget. Would you be interested in voting on the budget? There's only 5 of us, and perhaps you may want to wait to see there's more. What is the wish of the gathering?
I personally would like to wait. I am still waiting for some information from the HR director. We've had some correspondence back and forth, so it's being worked on. So right now I'm not prepared to vote, but that's
Okay.
just me.
Excellent, we can move on. How about the EMS budget? Now, that is a separate article because it's operationally, it's run with retained earnings. And I've asked Judy for an accounting of the retained earnings, because we don't typically see that in our revenues because it's, as I said, a separate article. So would you want to vote on the EMS budget?
I'll make a motion to recommend the EMS budget.
Motion to approve. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any other further discussion? There being none, I'll ask for a vote. May a clerk call the roll, please?
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave, you're on mute. Tom, you're on mute.
Excuse me. Yes.
Good.
Yes, okay, and Dave, you're still on mute. Okay, we'll pass on Dave, so it's, and me, myself, yes, so that's 5 yes. And
The next one is Article 9, which is Upper Cape. May I have any other questions on that one?
I move we recommend Upper Cape.
Do I have a second, please?
second,
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, may I please call the roll, please?
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes. Dave? Okay, 500.
Wonder what happened to Dave, my golly. Okay, the next one.
He's out having supper.
Water Pollution Control Facility Enterprise Fund. May I have a motion to approve, please?
So made.
May I have a second?
Second,
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, clerk call the roll, please.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 500.
Union contracts. I know we have one settled. Derek is usually eavesdropping on most of these meetings, although I haven't indicated that I would be calling on him. There is one, but Derek has a family concern, so it's appropriate that it's not necessary that he be there. Things, family is more important. And so we'll move on to Littleton Drive with CPA. Perhaps I would like to hold that. Dominic was concerned about the profit nonprofit issue last time, so I'd like to have the meeting with him present so he'd have an opportunity to express his interest. And let's see, the harbor services and permits. Gary was going to be here, and unfortunately he is not, so I will make sure I schedule him next week. And the next one is Town Charter, Article 23. And I have kind of a cheat sheet that will go over each individual, the definitions and all. And so on Charter 2, we'll go for A, Part A, which is the definitions. Are there any concerns or questions?
Nope.
There being none, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Please.
second.
And seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 600.
Second one is the transitional. May I have a motion to approve?
So made.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, clerk, call the roll, please.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 600.
Article 23, Part C, capital planning. This is an issue where the the treasurer is now required to attend the capital planning meetings. He has been there for the past couple of years, but they're formalizing it in language. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, clerk, call the roll.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 600.
Next one, Article 23, Section D, sewer. They're reformatting and it removes the responsibility of the appointment of the sewer superintendent from commissioners to town administrator. May I have a motion to approve?
So made.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, clerk, call the roll, please.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 600.
Okay, the next one, Article 23, Sections E, the assessors. This was rewritten with the guidance of the director of the assessment to correctly reflect the duties and responsibilities of the elected assessors, as well as the director of assessment under mass law. And they voted to recommend the changes. May I have a motion, please?
So made.
May I have a
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, clerk, call the roll, please.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Hi, Tom. Myself, yes, 600.
Okay, the next in Article 23, Section F, charter changes. The states the Board of Selectmen may appoint a charter review committee from time to time, as well as on the required years ending in 9, and further that the appointments be made within the first 2 calendar months of the years ending in 9. Originally, it was only once every 10 years, year ending in 9. And they're trying to make sure that the committee is appointed in that year ending in 9, in the early part of the year versus the later part because of the time frame they have to submit their report. And this will give them an opportunity also if during the within the 10-year period, they find there's some errors or there's some changes made legislatively, et cetera, that they can call for a charter change commission. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Well,
Second.
let's define the early part of the year. Does it define the early part of the year?
First 2
Yes,
months.
the first 2 calendar months.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All those in favor, clerk, call the roll, please.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 600.
Next one, Article 23, Section G, Town Clerk. Chair, the change recommends that town clerk become appointed by the town administrator as other department heads are now appointed. This recommendation has the town clerk's full support, and according to Massachusetts Municipal Association, more than a third of the towns in Massachusetts have already adopted this change. Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, clerk call the roll, please.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 600.
Thank you. And as far as I had questions regarding her salary or income, and currently she's made as an elected official 85,000, and they have opted with her agreement is that she will start, assuming the Attorney General approves the changes, she will start her position as an appointed town clerk at 85,000, and that will be the beginning of her steps as she goes up in the process. The next one is Article 23, Section H, Town Administrator. There's a couple changes here. Let's see. In Section 4.2, Section A, the recommended change clarifies the appointing authority of the town administrator. Clarifies that the department head appointments made by the town administrator are the only appointments the select board has the right to affirm or deny. Clarifies that 4 members of the select board must vote to adopt preliminary resolutions of removal or suspension of the administrator. They say 3 to hire, 4 to fire. And that remove can currently, if you've had nothing else to do on Tuesday evenings, been listening to the selectmen, they have been approving the hiring of even anyone within the workforce of the town. And this will remove that at point of, which is appropriate. The exclusive firing agent should be the town administrator. And in this case, the selectmen are approving the hiring of the individuals. And so that removes that and puts it back, I think, where it belongs in most organizations. So we'll have a motion to approve, please.
So made.
So moved.
We'll have a second.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
myself, yes, 600.
Next, Article 23, Section I, Road Commissioners. And, oh, they didn't mention it. Where is it? I don't know what they're doing with the road commissioner. My apologies. I do believe they're reaffirming that the road commissioners currently are the selectmen. It used to be a separate board. I have a very silent nodding of someone's head. Alan, could I ask on it, please? Thank you.
Yeah, the road commissioners were removed from the selectmen back in 2010. And the reason being is that the selectmen at that time also were the sewer commissioners. And unfortunately, the selectmen had a hard enough time doing their base job. And the town meeting agreed that both the road commissioners and the sewer commissioner functions should go to separate people. And of course, the sewer commissioners are elected and the road commissioners are appointed. There is a feeling from a couple, I can't say all, I know at least 2 of us are not real crazy about becoming road commissioners again. There's always issues about the planning board kind of handling a lot of the stuff, and it's been a mess for a long time. It got straightened out, and one member, I'm not going to say who or what because it's not appropriate, really doesn't think the road commissioners should continue as road commissioners and should go back to the selectmen. My vote is no.
Okay, the charter change designates the selectmen as road commissioners.
If it passes, right now, the road commissioners are the road commissioners. They are a separately appointed commission.
And how many members are on the road commissioners?
I think it's either 5 or 7. One of the reasons, if I'm speaking out of line, just let me know. I'll stop. I believe we have like the police chief, we have Dave Menard from municipal maintenance, and the comments to justify it was that we're taking time away or making extra work and time for some of the department heads. They can basically, like John Walsett can send one of the lieutenants if he wants. He doesn't have to be there. Same with Dave Menard if he wants. And these meetings are usually at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is actually during the regular work week. So it's not as if because I hate to have them come in like on a 7 o'clock at night for a lot of our meetings. I'm not comfortable with that at all. So I think the reasoning really is that there's a lack of confidence for some reason, and I'm not sure why, because again, the Board of Selectmen have an awful lot on their plate. And I don't see why we should be doing that. We do dog hearings and all this other stuff, which is about the most uncomfortable thing to do. So that's just my comment.
Okay, as an FYI, the selectmen voted 2-3-2-3-0. So it lost on the selectmen side.
But did the road commissioners vote if they did at all?
No,
No.
Don't know.
they were never consulted, Gerald, and I know some of them are quite upset.
Says it all.
And as far as the selectmen are concerned, they would rather the road commissioners remain as road commissioners as it currently stands. So I have a motion to approve, please.
I'll make a motion.
And I have a second.
Yeah, can I ask a question first?
Certainly.
So I know we're voting right now by each subcategory, but at town hall meeting, is it just going to be a up or down vote on the entire article, or are they actually going to vote on each of these subcategories as well too?
No.
No,
They
they won't
make
vote
reference-
on the, they won't vote on the subcategories.
No. They
Okay.
will have it, of course, as information, but no, it is not part of the article. Now,
Right. So we're just making an individual unique recommendation on each of these subcategories.
Yes, in our recommendation, we will itemize that in this case, if it were to lose, we of course would itemize that. Each of these sections are referred to in the article, but the the vote itself would be a vote in its entirety unless someone stands to make an amendment to delete the road commissioners.
Right.
And that would be appropriate because that would be lessen the size of the article itself.
Right, but that's the only way they would be able to address if there was one specific subcategory that was a particular point of contention. So,
Correct. And I think that's the overall intent because the selectmen broke it out individually themselves. And I think although the road commission weren't consulted, as Alan has indicated, it is an area of concern by the selectmen themselves. So I think it appropriate. So we have a motion to approve. Clerk, may I call the roll, please?
We need a second. Second.
Motion's made and seconded.
Ernie,
No.
Jody,
No.
Glenn,
no,
Dave,
No.
Tom.
I'm gonna pass. I have no bias, no understanding. Be stupid to make a judgment.
Myself, no. So that's 015. No, 051.
5-1.
051.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. That would finish pretty much, well, we have the nip bottles. I think I'd rather a larger group to make any vote on that. The petition for naming the elementary school, it was 800 to refer. And Article 26 which is an initiative petition, and that would be Brenda, who we had last week. And her bylaw was relevant to the affordable housing new construction. I, for some reason or other, have a vague idea of what this was now, and it's, I mean, no disrespect to Brenda, it's just for some reason or other, I just can't recollect the details on this. Has anybody else got any concerns of this?
I'd like to know what the planning board thinks about it, and also what town council thinks about this.
Okay, why don't I arrange then to have Brenda back on with, and we get some more information from those other two parties relevant to it. Agreed?
Thank you.
Okay. Another issue we have, of course, is Article 1, which is a special town meeting within the special town meeting. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion relevant to that. And as well as, I'm bringing up now that, did everyone get a letter in their mail? Wareham wins, vote yes on 1. Jody called me about it this afternoon, and I hadn't gone out to my mail yet, and I did so. I have a question regarding what they're saying in here. In one case, it's highlighted in red. Apparently Jody and I are the only ones with the letter. Did anyone else get it?
Nothing in East Wareham PO.
All I've seen is lawn signs.
Okay. One section says a no vote means the properties will eventually be developed as high-density housing. My read of the R120 zoning, I don't see where high-density zoning is allowed. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Unless it's a 40B, no.
No. And I have a problem with that. I think that's a false narrative that they're did. And they also say that the notice group has demonstrated a track record of working with cities and towns to build unique and innovative projects that create jobs and opportunities throughout southeastern Massachusetts. Well, there's at least 4 of us sitting here who have been talking with their attorney, and I remember sitting in his vehicle and asked him, what have they done lately? And the only thing they've ever come up with is Marina Bay and Granite Links. Now, I don't selling them short. I'm just concerned they are suggesting they've done more, but they can't produce evidence of it. In fact, we've gone on their website and they do have Wareham Park on it, but if you click on it, there's absolutely no information. I have a problem with that. I mean, I like the project. I want it to go forward, but I don't like people trying to sell it with what I think is probably an exaggerated sense of not a false narrative.
So why do you like the project then?
I think it has an opportunity for the community. I think it's desperate. The community is in need of the project. Now, I've had several phone calls from these people, and I've explained to them what my view is on what I would think that should be out there. And as an entertainment, I told them I think it'd be nice to have a theater. North Shore has a theater in the round, and a very active one. Music Circus down on the Cape, unfortunately, takes me 2 hours to get home from it. It'd be nice if we had a decent theater, a nice restaurant. And if JLL is involved, they're big on biomedics, and that could allude to laboratories, medical buildings, et cetera. Be nice if a nice 1 or 2 upscale office buildings. These people from those offices.
They come forward. Let's wear the specifics. Let's come
No,
forward
it's
with the
speculation
specifics.
on my part, Tom. I'm just speculating. I said they asked me what I would think, and I gave them my opinion, and that's my opinion. What I'm just saying, there is no proposal for this. None proposed, none at all. As a matter of fact, at town meeting, notice cannot speak. They cannot do a presentation. They are not citizens, or none of them are citizens of Wareham. and they do not have any business before town meeting. So the presentation will occur principally by whomever within town, I presume, not the selectmen directly, but indirectly, will be doing a presentation. But the notice people cannot speak. They cannot allude to any possible proposal because there is none.
I'm still back to the point of if this passes, what happens? Specifically, what happens?
Zoning gets changed.
The ownership
Yeah.
gets changed?
Zoning gets changed.
I understand that, but does the ownership of the property get changed?
Yes.
So they have a purchase and sale agreement that I presume has probably a codicil in it that says upon passage of this motion, this says
And how long is the period of they have it?
that's their business, none of our business. It's a
They
private,
still have to go through all the permitting with the planning board and whomever, whatever boards. This
Yeah.
is just a zoning change.
Yeah.
And it's not unusual. I mean, just recently I watched the selectmen's meeting when they had the folks for the Tremont Nail. They basically, in selectmen can correct me, they just kind of have ideas, but they're gonna wait to see what the market can be. You know, I mean, maybe a hotel will work up there, maybe it won't, maybe some kind of theater up there. You know, the one that they want to do down the Main Street, which I think is a great idea. They have no concrete plans. They just have to get things passed and see, again, what's the market going to be? High-end condos, high-end restaurants, who knows? But that's, you know, it's just a zoning change. You know, it's.
Alan
They
corrected,
got the cart before the horse. Bring the project, we'll make the zoning change.
you'll never see it. Alan just corrected me, and he's quite right. In the finer details, notice can ask to speak, but it'll be up to Claire whether or not she allows him. However, a voter could speak and ask to allow notice to speak, and that'll bring them on the floor. Whether or not that's planned, that is part of the practice of a town meeting, and it's allowed under the rules. But right now, we have to understand that we are voting exclusively on a zoning change. There is no product or no proposal before the planning board with respect to anything happening with that property. And as far as what they may do with it, it's a private sale. And if they're buying it and the zoning does not change, then they own the property. But all of that is occurring outside of our interest. Now, Tom, you're concerned, yes, you'd like to, and we have this is a situation where, yes, you could ask that question, but under normal circumstances, you'd have to go to the planning board, and because it would never appear before us in terms of being on a town meeting warrant.
So really what's happening is the planning board is now got the decision and it's kind of come away from the town citizens. Is that correct?
Correct, which is what every project does. And in this case, if the zoning is passed, the planning board has the exclusive authority of passing on what is allowed in that area. And there's restrictions. Now, David just gave me something yesterday. He looked up and he compared the zoning in R130 and the zoning for this. And everything that's permitted in the R130 is permitted in this zone also. But I think, David, the restriction in the zoning that's before us is that all of these things require 100 acres, whereas you can do it in 2, 3, 4, 5 acres as it currently exists.
Right, you can build a piggery there on 5 acres. So, and you don't have, the thing that is interesting about this particular zoning change is that it includes not only the 100 acres, but a lot of restrictions that do not exist under the existing zoning. For example, a developer will have to go in and do a groundwater study. The developer will have to go in and provide monitoring wells for the groundwater. Now, those things are not included under the existing zoning bylaws, or particularly under the 130 zoning bylaws. So this particular aspect provides additional controls and additional reviews that are not listed under the existing bylaws. It specifically says that anyone coming in and using this overlay district has to go in and talk to the Onset Water Department, the Wareham Water Department, the Sewer Department, the police, the municipal maintenance. It's very explicit, as well as conservation, as to what it has to do. So it adds additional restrictions on any developer.
So explain to me then why the developer would be interested in taking on these additional restrictions. There's got to be something behind this that we don't know about or
Well,
not talking about.
Well, because what they can do is what they're looking at is the possibility of putting in a multi-use development, which is not necessarily approved under the existing bylaws. You can't put in a biomedical facility. You can put in an educational facility. You can put in a religious community. You can put in youth camps. But to bring in an insurance company, a biomedical company, under the existing bylaws, it's not permitted and not allowed. So what this would do, this would actually save when the Worthen Development Company comes in, it would save you probably 2 years of changing the zoning to permit your biomedical profession building to come in, or your chocolate factory. So it would save a developer probably 2 years of dealing, which they've already been doing, with the town to get the zoning. They'd still have to go before the planning board, and it would have to be a special permit from the planning board. It's not just a review by the planning board. They have to go through the special permit process.
But they also have to go through, we have to increase the water pollution control capacity,
And
water capacity.
that's the reason.
And get the entrance onto 25.
Well,
I mean, all that has to happen.
Yes,
and that's part of the special permit.
but it's, if they don't get this zoning passed, they have no incentive to go forward to research it, even invest in trying to get another ramp, to invest in doing wells or anything of that nature, because there's no profit in it. They lost their incentive for profit. This is all profit. They take a risk. Investors take this risk, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're doing the potential. They're hoping they can do it. They hope that with their expertise and their contacts, they can get investors involved who will build these kinds of things.
But they're blocking any other development company. This is
Well,
not Cabot and Forbes we're talking about. This is Nodos.
Oh, but Notice can sit there and own the property and bring in different investors who want to build on that property.
But they're blocking other developers.
No,
No,
partners with other
No.
developers.
the zoning, once the zoning's changed, any developer can come in and do it. They just have to buy the property.
Okay.
Now, there's also a concern about water and how we're going to dilute the aquifer and all. We're sitting on an aquifer that's measured in hundreds of miles. There is multiple communities drawing off the same aquifer that we are. And the water flow, if you understand hydrology at all, there is a water flow underground. It isn't stagnant water just sitting there waiting to be drawn. And just because wells are drawing the water off doesn't mean the flow of that water turns around and goes towards the wells. It actually goes in the opposite direction of the wells that we currently have in that area. And so if there's any pollutants, it's going across 25, not back to the wells. And you have to consider that all that land, a lot of it is previously used as cranberry bogs. And oftentimes Makepeace has a problem because people are complaining that he is contaminating the well water with all the fertilizers he's putting on the bogs. Well, all those bogs were fertilized and all, and there's no contamination in the well water. As they claim, we have the best water around. And all the potentials they want to accuse of contaminating it have been there for umpteen years, and it's never happened. So but there are a legitimate concern. I think that whether they for or against, everyone has to be respected and understand they are concerned. Trying to do the best thing they can, make the best decision they can. Sometimes the information is gleaned that, in fact, one person on Wareham Matters that I was chatting with said there was a recent article regarding the gambling. Well, the gambling was put to rest back in 2019, and they're resurrecting these old articles. And Senator Pacheco, in a hearing, spoke strongly against a article submitted by Susan Gifford on behalf of Notos to give the permission to allow them to create a casino that had not been originally allowed within the original legislation. He went on in another hearing, I believe, because there was two separate articles I was reading in different dates, in which the legislature expressed an interest only in allowing the existing legislation to play out before they made any changes. And the Gambling Commission agreed with that point of view. So there is a opening for one full gambling casino. I think they have to have upfront monies of around $800 million. And the Wampanoag Indians are favored by Senator Pacheco right now because it happens to their 300 acres they own within his district. I think
he's a Taunton biased guy. I mean, he's not going to support it. And if Notos was so brilliant with their racetrack and their slots parlor, they couldn't get that through. So
no, that's what I'm talking about.
They came with a project that was dead on arrival.
Right, because I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. It died in 2019.
Well,
and
why do we want to do business with these guys? Why do we want to help them?
Because they're a developer that is interested. That's why. There is no other developer that's come forward. There was only one. There was two others. One is local. He just expressed an interest in it, so there's nothing using his name or anything because that would be inappropriate. But JLL has written a letter, and I have a copy of it. It's addressed to Derek. He expressed a specific interest in this property and the development of this property, and whether or not he would go in with Notos or buy Notos out or whatever. This outfit does $16 billion a year. It's not something I would sneeze at. And if they take an interest or have an interest in that particular area and you give us revenues that we desperately need, then I certainly would buy into it. And if it's the first step is going with this zoning change, I very enthusiastically will take that first step.
It doesn't mean we have to take the second step or approve of the second step.
Correct.
If
But it
nobody
isn't
comes
we
up,
any longer. It's just the planning board, right?
Correct.
Okay. So
the planning board, the conservation commission, the water departments, the sewer department, and they also need approval if they go and put an exit off the highway, they're going to need approval from the state in order to do that.
And David, you point out from the state and that's not singular. There are more agencies they would have to go through with the state that you'd run out of letters in the alphabet. But as you point out, when you take that first step, all you're doing is opening the door for discussion. Any further discussion? But I'm concerned about, I want to represent the finance committee appropriately. And there are three of you who have expressed a concern, and I want to make sure that in any presentation I do representing the Finance Committee, that your opinion is included in that.
Well,
Yeah.
get the cost per student out of the whole discussion.
It's in there. It has to be in there. Is
It's
that
a
question? That's why we're,
bogus number.
no, it isn't.
It
But-
is.
What's bogus, Tom? What do
If
you,
you add one student, you only add $60,000 to the school budget.
no,
It's a little over 20,000 per student.
no, it costs us $60 million to run the school system. That's good. That's including Upper Cape, and that's based on the latest audit from our audit company. We have 2,400 students, Upper Cape and ourselves combined, and you divide that into 60 million, and you come out with approximately 25 to 26,000 per student that we spend all in. A house average value is 309,000 based.
So I understand all those numbers.
Okay, and that's
one
and that's
student-
why.
One student is not, you add one student, you haven't got to have another 30,000 bucks. That's
You had-
crazy.
No, you had one student. If it's caught, well, okay, if you have,
Variable, you got variable and fixed costs all mixed up in that thing.
That's,
You
that's
don't know
why,
what the variable
that-
cost per
Tom,
student is because
that's why
each
it's-
student is different.
that's why it's complicated, Tom. But the only thing you can do for sure is take what happened with the number of students and the expense that just went by, and you can say, okay, that is for sure. All right. Then you can start talking about variable costs, but you got to talk how many houses, how many kids, are they special needs? Okay. How
No,
many
you don't
bus
have any of
routes?
that.
You know, Tom, you're going into, this is not, it's not like, oh, okay, it's going to be like $300 because there's one kid. That's not how variable costs work, because at some point you got to add new teachers. Classrooms, what about the new depreciation on that big building? The costs that were shown on the audit are for the depreciation on the old school. What about when we bring the new school on? For 80 million bucks.
Okay.
It's not simple.
And you have to consider-
Your guys are being co-opted by the real estate development powers in the state. Money's talking here.
You know, what's talking is the federal deficit, and we better as a town start trying to get off of counting on the feds in the states to run the town. We should look to become self-sufficient, because the federal deficit is 30 trillion bucks, Tom.
Yeah, but
Okay? And going up,
we're not,
even as of today.
we're not going to get at that until we look at ourselves as a region and we get rid of the water departments and all the fire departments, on all of the inefficiencies in our whole area. That's not going to happen until somebody sits down and says, if you run this region this way, it's going to cost X versus how we run it today.
Well, we started to be independent by saying yay on this proposal.
Okay.
okay, I knew this would generate some discussion, and that's what it's meant to do. Okay, the only other thing, let's see, I have here, our audit report. As I mentioned, I have the envelope sitting on the front seat of my car. As I go around, I'll try and stuff them into your mailboxes. They were 8, I mailed one out. I think it was to Stuart. But it was $8 and $50 that they made them all out. Well, you have you have it online, but I certainly will try to make sure I get it onto your mailboxes. It's interesting. They're all lined up on my shelf, but an important page is in the money issue that Jerry was just referring to, and that's where we get our information from. And I think it's important to look through it, just browse it. Excuse me, I beg your pardon. But is there anything else? Yes.
If this is a little bit of a free form thing,
Yes.
I have got here a introduction from a guy named Jervis at we were at the Finance Committee confab at Bridgewater. And there's a whole lot of things that the Finance Committee should have and do. It says safeguard and overall management of the taxpayer money. Make recommendation to meeting the budget, also play important roles in the budget process. And within that, it says that we develop long-range revenue and expenditure forecasts to identify upcoming operating and capital budget needs. We don't do that. It says continues the review monthly financial reports so that they're informed in the change town's financial committee. We don't get that. I mean, this is supposedly the role of the finance committee, and it does not appear that we are anywhere near online with what the town finances are or projected to be. And I think we're missing out an important element of a responsibility. And if I'm going to send this note out, I think probably David and Bernie, you already have it. But I think we should start making more demands on the information, that the flow of information that we're receiving and it is getting developed.
Tom, would you, all of us, please?
I will.
To all of us?
You've got it, yeah, but you've got a copy of this thing.
Yes, I have. It's in my, I have.
And we're not doing it. That's my point.
Indeed, there's a lot of things we aren't doing. And perhaps you're right, and perhaps we should. It's a lot of information that we could work with, and I really felt inadequate because I had attended those same seminars with you, and I think David, you were there, Jerry was there, and some of these guys that presented. I think was he from Northborough?
Well, the Northborough guy's terrific, but
oh my gosh, yes. I think when selectmen meet with him, they sit up and take notice. That's for sure. He tells them exactly what they should do, and
all you have to do is to go online. You can print their whole goddamn budget and its development.
Yes. The only problem is there's so many damn pages in it. But anyway, yes, please. I'm glad you reminded me of that, Tom. We'll take an interest in that, and we'll get everybody else on board, and we'll see if we progress on it. And we'll each take a responsibility. I think that's what we need to do. David always tells me, you should delegate, Bernie, you should delegate.
Well, and you got to put pressure on the town to produce the information.
Yeah.
Make sure the town has the tools to produce the information. I'm not sure that we're using all of the technology that's available to keep our finger on how the town's running.
Well, I think one of the impediments to getting all of that is the current operating system we're using, or accounting system that we're using. And it's over 10 years old. And I was talking with Matt a while ago, and it's costing us money to maintain it. In fact, it is so old, they no longer produce updates, and they no longer offer a service contract in the maintenance of it. So I think it's time we did something about that too. And I would suggest that's where all the reports come that he's referring to. All the information or ability comes in that application.
There's that, there's the software aspect of it, and there's also the personnel aspect of it. Wareham back 2014 went for a 2.5 override. That was turned down. As a consequence, we've actually reduced the staffing in town. The staffing we have in town, as we all realize that, is less than it was in many departments, less than it was 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. I think the police department is smaller than it was 20 years ago. Municipal maintenance has taken over things like recreation and other departments and hasn't increased their staffing. So part of the problem is that the town doesn't have the resources to do a lot of this research and planning. And then again, we also don't have the software to do it.
As you point out,
This system's very antiquated. But I can
Yes.
tell you, just that I forget how much they get Munis and Stoughton now, and they put it in a number of years ago. I forget how many millions that system cost. But I do remember it cost $650,000 to train all the personnel in town. Because I was choking when I heard that, but it was required. But that system, it put the whole town on the same system, the school department, everybody. So, you know, I'm just going to use the town administrator. He can hit the button and see every line item in the school department or every line item in the water department, whatever. But it's a very expensive upgrade. I'm talking millions. I'm not talking jump change.
Right.
Jody, we should have a plan. I mean, we should be saying this technology is coming along. What are we doing about it? Can we take advantage of it?
We've been working on this probably at least 4 years, trying to get a program that we can use, get the various department heads to buy into it and go ahead and do it.
It's very expensive.
It has to get through capital planning first, but as David was mentioning, as to our reduction staff, et cetera, you go through town hall, you'll find that every office has at least one empty desk in it. And right now I believe he has a floater, and basically if someone is absent, they'll send them down to that particular department, but that doesn't mean they're skilled enough in what is going on in that department, so they just relieve them from answering the phone and all, which in of itself is something worthwhile. But unfortunately, as David points out, we have that shortfall of personnel. I don't know how to fix it. I think I have to get a hold of DOR to see if there's any grants or whatever available. There's a lot of money coming down the road, short hair. I don't like the way that they're spending it, but if they're going to spend it, make sure we get our piece of it. Big piece.
You know, I've been driving Bernie crazy about trying to get staffing numbers in payroll numbers. And I can sit here, and this is one of the reasons they are way understaffed. Make no mistake about it. The maintenance department's way under. You know, cops, you can always use more cops. I don't care where you live. But these folks in the town hall and in other departments do a tremendous job with the resources they have. They really do. I have no problem saying that. I could compare to where I came from, but Wareham has short staffing, doing a great job. And
indeed, they are. It's absolutely amazing that they are doing as good as they are. And it's there's complaints on Wareham Matters. There's light fixtures out. The street lights are out. A lot of them are those decorative ones. They cost $3,000 a piece. 6 years ago was the last year we actually had a line item in the budget to repair those things. We could no longer afford them. And David's trying to figure out a way to convert them to use a regular bulb. But of course, that takes time and money to do the conversion. And he just hasn't been able to do that. And it's very difficult when you talk to someone to try and convince them why you're not able to do something. Again, when we were doing the budget review on the police department, you mentioned they're short-staffed. Yes, they are. They have more calls than any community around us. Population-wise, they have smaller populations, yet we have fewer police on the street than they do, and they're smaller. But now we're losing 4 for retirements, and we're going to have to hire 4, send them to the academy. That means we're down 4 on the street, and we're already shorthanded. You go over to Dave Maynard, he's got to take care of, well, let's see, Mother's Day is coming up, so all of his 10 people, I would say, are probably over there trying to clean up the cemeteries. Then he's got to go down to the beaches. He's got to keep the beaches clean. Then he's got to sweep the sand off the street. Then he's got to take care of the potholes in some 84 miles of roads or something like that. I mean, it's extraordinary what they're accomplishing. It really is. You don't have potholes on your street, Tom.
We have tunnels.
You just lose a car in the
I mean, we got to do our job, and part of our job is focusing these things and these needs so that the town recognizes it and come up with some options as to how we A, reduce the cost, or B, cover that which we can realistically. You look at Duxbury, they've got 3 towns involved now in their call center. We've got a call center in the police department, the fire department. But Alan Saban just gave me I think it was the hand, not the finger, right?
Tom, they actually have 6 different municipalities in that one system.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We're not anticipating and taking advantage of the efficiencies that are available, and at least focusing them and letting the taxpayer know what it's costing us versus what it potentially could cost. So anyway,
Using that, Tom, using that as an example, I'll call upon our representative on the police study committee as to express how willingly the other call centers are to coming in with us.
One of the things, Tom, one of the things on the police or the Public Safety Building Committee, which we have going forward, and one of the goals of the committee is to have a centralized dispatch center, not only for the town of Wareham, but also for towns such as Rochester and Marion and other towns in the area.
The state of California has 8 call centers. That's the state.
2.
I recognize that.
2.
I recognize that.
Well, let's wake up, guys, and let's make these thing happen, for Christ's sake. Let's get them focused and marketed.
Bernie, can I make a comment for Tom before you go completely crazy?
Okay.
Back about 4 years ago, I brought the police chief, both fire chiefs, EMS director, harbor master, etc. I brought them all up to that particular facility, show them what they were doing up there and how they get a certain dollar amount from the state. And every couple of years, the state comes in and completely revamps all the equipment, updates, etc. It's all a grant program, etc. I did it at that time. Everybody came back and, well, a couple were interested, a couple weren't. We've been unable to get anyone to sit down and say, okay, let's do this. Everybody has their own little silo and they won't give it up. It's like, the fire department comment was, I'm going to lose 3 people for my dispatch. My comment was, you can put them to work somewhere else. They just can't get past this. Rochester uses the particular piece that Tom's talking about right now, actually. Brad Morse, who is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, that he and I talk all the time, they said, basically, if Wareham gets something together, it really works right. When their contract is up in a year, so they consider moving. Marion, we've talked to, etc. But until we get our own group of the 2 districts and the town and EMS to accept this, you can't do it. And the problem is we have 2 districts that are not going to merge together, at least in our lifetime, because the district itself has to, vote for it. And who comes to the district meetings? But most of the employees. So, you have an impasse no matter what you do.
They want the overtime.
If you look at if you guys actually look at payroll, which I do every week because I have to sign the warrants, take a look at the payroll on the people doing dispatch, how many hours they work a week.
Well, they got to work 172 hours or whatever the heck it is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that coverage. It's crazy.
But each department has dispatch working those hours.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. It's very blatant as to for all of us who have been in business.
It's frustrating. I'll leave it at that.
Throughout this whole process. And yes, it's trying to convince somebody. They're very, very parochial. They very possessive. It's unfortunate because there's a very different age group too. I'll raise my hand and say, yes, I'm the other age group, but I don't believe that. But anyway, as usual, our meetings go rather freewheeling. And I like that because we exchange an awful lot of information. And I think we're all better aware of what's going on and have an opportunity to express ourselves. Even if
I'm sorry, Bernie, I didn't mean to get you off track.
No, Tom, you did get me off.
We're going.
No, you didn't get me off track. You got me on your track, which is where I'm supposed to be. Okay, gentlemen, I thank you. I have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait,
Second,
I won't ask the clerk, call the roll. All those in favor say aye. Just quickly.
Aye.
I'll
Aye.
take it for granted. Have a good night, gentlemen.
good night, stay safe.
Ciao.